Hello, it's your favourite Atomic Blonde here, and welcome to Sunday Lunch. Hello, Blondies. What do you think? Good name? Bad name? Hey, whatever. Doesn't matter. So, yeah, a few weeks away. Apologies. As I said on my Atomic Pop chat that I dropped yesterday, it's just been a bit chaotic. Weekends away, family stuff, cold. But I'm back. Apologies, it's not live. My weekends are just bedlam at the moment. I was hoping to do a live show today, but as I said, stuff. So I'd rather record a show, get it out, have some interactions via the comments, rather than missing another week. But I'm determined to try and carve some time out to do a live show, whether that's actually going to be on Sundays. I might have to switch to doing something in the week to interact with you guys, because just looking at my calendar over the next couple of months, poor planning on my part. Like, people stop having birthdays. Can we not have bank holidays? But hey, first world problems. So anyway, quite a lot of shows to get through. I'm just going to round out some of the shows I was talking about with you guys a couple of weeks back when I'd done my last show, beginning sort of 12th of March, I think it was, crikey. Yeah, I won't go into as much depth around all the individual episodes because it will be an incredibly long show. I've got quite a few new shows to get into, but I do want to give you my thoughts just on those shows so we can move on and talk in more depth about the upcoming and shows I'm currently watching. So we better get into it. So obviously the Last of Us finished a couple of weeks ago. As you know from my reviews, I was kind of really falling out of favor with this show. I just found it a bit trite, a bit boring towards the end. You know, we really weren't sort of seeing enough of the world, in my opinion, and the clickers. I get that they wanted to make it sort of quite different from The Walking Dead, so it had a different feel to it. But, you know, just sort of seeing Bella with her best friend running around a disused shopping mall, who cares? Bella Ramsey, obviously, forgotten her name already. This is how little I get about this show. Yeah, so by the finale, I really wasn't that bothered. I wasn't excited, wasn't particularly looking forward to it. I didn't watch it the day it dropped, to be fair. And when I did watch it, I thought it was an okay episode. Some people were like, oh, it was back on form at the end. And I was like, I think what I did like about the finale was Joel finally sort of had some agency in the episode. You know, he gets up to the Fireflies to extract the cure. He finds out that the whatever they need, the protein, whatever it is actually in her brain. So the only way to obviously get it out is to do brain surgery, which is going to kill her. He finds this out, and he's you know, the needs of the many doesn't really come into play. He just goes like apeshit and decides to get her out of there. So yeah, and this is like, you know, he basically goes around, takes out nearly all of the Fireflies to rescue her, and then takes her off somewhere else. And at the end, I think he promises her that he didn't kill certain people, and he did. So I'm sure that's going to come back to bite him or something. One of the characters in it is, you know, roided up what's her face The Last of Us 2. So, you know, that's exactly, you know, we know that's where it's going to go. I have read a few things that says it's not going to follow the story exactly. It's like, well, what you're not going to kill off your lead character in episode 1? Is that what you're telling us? Don't know. But overall, I thought it started off really solidly up to about episode 4, and then no, I really loved it. No, I wasn't a fan of episode 4. Loved episode 5. everything up until the final episode, I really wasn't that bothered about. So I don't think it deserves as much praise as it's getting, to be honest. You know, I was absolutely there at the start, but you know, you've got to have the consistency all the way through the season. I really don't feel it held that consistency. I guess people who played the game give it a bit more kudos because it did stick to the game story pretty faithfully, which is refreshing to see. You know, normally the source material just gets binned. Well, good source material. So yeah, I was like really sort of nonplussed by the end of it. Great performance from Pedro in the last episode, and so great to see Joel actually sort of being that protector, being that sort of alpha male that he wasn't allowed to be for most of the season. And like I say, really not that bothered about season 2. I don't think it ended on a strong enough feel for me. And obviously, it really depends what they do with season 2 and how close it's going to be to the game as to whether anybody watches it, I think. So yeah, a bit of an anticlimax for the Last of Us. Great if you liked it. I think it was very overrated. Looking at it in its entirety, I think there were some great episodes in there. I personally really loved the episode 3. Again, never played the game. Loved episode 5, and I thought the opening 2 episodes were really solid. But yeah, given they only had to make 9 episodes, and 4 or 5 of those were just like, did it matter really? Did anything really happen? Not really. Pretty telling. It's not like you're trying to make 22 episodes anymore. You can't make 9 solid episodes. Everybody's allowed one or 2 wobbles, you know, but that many. Not for me overall. I wouldn't bother rewatching this series, and that's my measure really. Would I go back and watch it again? That's a no from me. So the Glory, as followers of my channel know, I love a bit of Korean drama. And the Glory was a real standout for this on Netflix. Part 2 dropped at the end of March. It's the story of Moon, who was heavily, I use the word bullied. Again, if you go back and watch my reviews, it was, you know, there was sexual assault in there. She was physically assaulted. She got 3rd-degree burns from ironing tongs all over her body. I mean, this is like another level bullying. And this is all about her as an adult looking to get revenge on the group of teenagers that basically tortured her at school. Part 1 basically sort of set it all up, put all the pieces on the board as to how she was going to get her revenge. She sort of made some friends along the way. There was a woman who was a housekeeper, and there was information that she needed to be able to blackmail someone. And this housekeeper, is being domestically abused by her husband on a regular basis. He's an alcoholic, just beating the crap out of her and her daughter. Her daughter was very, very smart, you know, looking to go to university abroad. And she wanted a way out. So Moon kind of took her under her wing, but employed her to get certain information, helped her to learn to drive, to spy, and was paying her to help give her a vehicle to be able to get away from her abusive husband. And she also did a doctor, and he kind of had his own subplots that his father was basically the hospital he works in. His parents own that hospital. His father was a very well-known or top of his game in Korea heart surgeon, and he goes to help a prisoner, and the prisoner just basically, he's a complete psychopath, kills his father, and he done it because he just wanted to see the look on his son's face. You know, he's really twisted individual. He's continued, since he's gone to prison, he's continued to write these letters to him, sort of goading him and saying how he has no regrets, and he relives the moment and he laughs and he can still see the blood because he sort of slits his throat. So it's really, really like not a nice person. So going into part 2 was kind of the execution of the plan. And none of it goes 100% to plan, but you know, she's a smart cookie, and yeah, it absolutely nails the landing. I really, really like the landing, and this is why I do really enjoy the Korean dramas. Some of them are, you know, better than others, but I haven't watched one yet, and I've watched quite a few where you kind of get to the end and go, what was that? And I think that's sort of Asian dramas in total. Another show I love, which is Japanese, which was Alice in Borderland. 2 seasons on Netflix. Again, you can find that on my Nerdy Weekly Roundups. Fantastic show. You're just literally for 2 seasons going, what the hell is going on? I don't, you know, very entertaining, very bloodthirsty, sort of in the vein of Squid Game. But it nails the landing. It explains what's going on and why they're in this place. And it all kind of makes sense. You don't just sit there going, well, that was a cop out, or that was a rubbish. And again with this, so spoiler, right? She does get her revenge. That's what you want to know. I won't tell you exactly how it all plays out because I really want you to go watch this show. Again, it is dubbed if you're not a big one for subtitles, or as we know, there can be sometimes a little bit lost in translation. So sometimes it's better with the subtitles in terms of the translation. But if you're like me, as I say, I'm always busy. I tend to actually watch the dub versions because then I can be doing other things while it's there, rather than obviously just having to watch the subtitles. But do go check this out. The characterization, the intricacies of the storyline, everything's carried through. Every thread they start, they finish. The subplot with the doctor and how what's his revenge, and he's sort of fantasized about killing his father's murderer. And she does help him get a revenge, but not necessarily in the way that you think. And everybody that sort of deserves to have their comeuppance gets their comeuppance. That's what I say. But it does play out in different ways. And how things work out with Park's husband and their daughter, because obviously we found out in part 1 that the daughter isn't his daughter. She's been having an affair with one of the gang from, you know, their friends since school. She's still sleeping with one of them, and he finds this out, and how it all plays out. Very, very well done. I absolutely loved this show. I'd absolutely watch it again. And if you're not sort of put your toe in the water for Korean drama, this is a really good one to start with. They do not shy away from topics. They are quite violent. So if you are a little bit, oof, and it is an uncomfortable watch when you see the flashbacks of her as like a sort of 14, 15-year-old girl, and the things they're doing to her, it's you know, you're like, oof. And you would not get that on our TV, but it's not sort of gratuitous or in a salacious way. It's absolutely there to build the story, understand her level of desperation, because there's a point when she's young, obviously she contemplates deleting herself because her life is just so awful. Her mother is basically sells her out and is never there, an alcoholic, and her mother is in part 2, and she's even more vile than she was when she was a little girl. But all this characterization is great, and it's believable. You know, you do get sucked into Moon's world. But I love the ending. I loved how it all played out. Absolutely worth a watch. So on Netflix, parts 1 and 2, The Glory, highly, highly recommend. Whoosh. So moving on. Right. So a new show. I just have a little drink out there. On Paramount. And there's a lot of good stuff coming out of Paramount right now. I think the whole Yellowstone has made them a little bit of cash. And they're actually I'm probably watching Paramount more than any of my other streaming services at the moment. I actually realized today I'm barely even watching Netflix. predominantly sort of Paramount, Apple, and Prime, I think. But anyway, I digress. So this show, School Spirits, you can tell here by the age of the cast, it is probably more of a young adult drama. But as you know from this channel, I quite like a little bit of that. There's still a little bit of young adult in my deep, dark, cynical, twisted adult heart. So I do enjoy these kind of dramas. But again, you need to take it with a pinch of salt. You have to appreciate that you're not the target audience. So there's a little bit of eye rolling in there with some modern sensibilities and things like that. But generally, I'm actually really enjoying this show. So as you can see, the girl in the middle there, that's Peyton List, who you might know from Cobra Kai. She is brilliant in that. She plays a cracking character. Again, from like a little bit of a tough background. And in this, again, she's a bit of a tough background. Her mother's an alcoholic. She's sort of coming up to her last year in high school. Very smart. Her and the guy on the left is her best friend, Simon. And they're both applying to the same college. It's sort of coming up to homecoming. And really, really looking towards the future. So the hook of this show, and again, it's things like I don't think it's groundbreaking or something we haven't seen before, but what it is that we see Maddie, she's at school. We see her with her boyfriend, Xavier. We're introduced to her friends, and just going about, day to day at school. Then she's in school, and it starts with they're in the gym, and and she's standing there with some other people, and they're watching this presentation thing going on in the gym. And then what we see really quickly is it's actually her memorial. So and what we find out in episode 1 is that Maddie's gone missing. They don't know what's happened to her at this point. Down in the basement of the school, there's blood splatter, quite a lot of blood. So she's missing, could be dead. And they're trying to find out where she is, what's happened to her, has she run away? Now, obviously, from our point of view, the people she's with are also dead. So we're being led that she's dead. And it's one of those that anybody that basically dies on the school premises is then stuck there if they've kind of got unfinished business. So then we're introduced to these collection of ghosts. There's like one from the 90s, one from the 80s. That's the jock Wally, who you can see like the school gym, and that's all named after him. He was a big quarterback at the school, and he was killed. He broke his neck during the homecoming game. There's Rhonda, who's like from the 60s, and there's a teacher there, and there's some kind of humor in it. You've got the school band who were killed in a car. The school bus crash. There's about 6 or 7 of them just start constantly playing and rehearsing their thing. And the premise is obviously, so she's been murdered, and none of the ghosts can interact or sort of haunt or speak to anybody who's alive. If they touch something or grab something, it kind of pulls into their dimension, and they can see it, touch it, feel it, but it's not like it's floating around or moving for anybody alive to see. It's quite clever how they kind of explain this. But then something strange happens. Her best friend, Simon, she goes into a classroom, and he's there, and he's very upset. And he can see her. He can't see any of the other ghosts. He can only see her. And then he can only see her at certain points around the school. And that is where someone has died. So it then kicks off a whole series of events. We're up to episode 6. It's dropping weekly on a Friday. Of her obviously they're trying to find out where her body is. And it's basically who done it, who killed Maddie. So the last few episodes, things have been coming out. Obviously, they're looking at the teachers. And we find out the backstories of the other students that have died and why they died, and there's the whole thing about unfinished business. So recently, one of the spirits got to pass over, whatever that means, So it's a twofold thing. So obviously, we're trying to solve Maddie's murder, but help the spirits move on. And like I say, I'm actually kind of really enjoying this. It's quite light-hearted, quite funny in places. Again, you've got all these spirits that are from different times. So, you kind of got the jock from the 80s. You've got the guy from the 90s who is gay. And his sort of crush boyfriend is now a teacher at the school. So he's sort of pining after him. And he never came out. There's the teacher that's with him. He's sort of dressed maybe from the 50s, 40s, 50s, and he's sort of still trying to teach them and give them counselling and guidance. Rhonda's like this really angry 60s feminist woman. You got a dropout sort of from the 70s hippie who's just still always just out there. So it's got a lot of potential. It's got some humour in it. It's got some good fun stuff. It's also obviously very sad, especially the scenes with her mother. So her mother's managed to stop drinking since Maddie's gone missing. She refuses to accept that Maddie's dead. Now, I don't know what I'm thinking. I mean, she could be in a coma, maybe, hence why Simon can see her, or she could be just dead. I mean, obviously we don't know. We've not seen her body. All we know is that her spirit's in the school, so it's heavily implying that she is dead. But why can Simon see her? This has never happened before. None of the other ghosts have ever been able to interact with anybody before. So is there actually she's in a coma somewhere? Who knows? But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I mean, it depends how many seasons this runs for. And I think the problem with a lot of American shows is they tend to run too long. I think if this is like a 2 or 3 season show, I think it could work really well, because you don't want to drag out too long, like who killed Maddie or where is Maddie. But I think there's some really good interactions, and the stories about people that obviously they're all young kids dealing with dying early. Maddie's mum comes to the school, and obviously seeing her mum like heartbroken, and it's difficult for Simon, who's her best friend, but clearly had some feelings for her as well, and all these kind of things. So I'd say it's nothing like sort of brand new that we haven't seen before. But I do really like Peyton List. She's brilliant in Cobra Kai. She's good in this. She can be quite wrapped up and self-absorbed. But so far so good. The dynamics between her and her friends and her boyfriend. There's a whole storyline with her boyfriend was actually cheating on her. So he's got all this guilt. Now she's gone missing. So yeah, it's good. It's good. So it is young adult. So you've got to bear that in mind. But I think overall, actually, it's really enjoyable. I'm looking forward to the next episode. And I think Paramount at the moment, all their stuff is dropping weekly. And I think it's absolutely paying dividends for them. We saw it with like sort of Tulsa King. Again, you can find that on some of my Sunday lunches, and I was talking about it on the Facebook yesterday. Go check that out. Great show. Obviously, you got Yellowstone. I've not really got into that, but I'm not a Western kind of person. I'm struggling to get through the first episode, but I'm persevering. Obviously, you got Picard season 3, which we'll come on to. Oh gosh, Wolfpack. I didn't even put it in my slides. I need to round out Wolfpack, don't I? Oh my God, that show. If that gets a season 2, it's got to be 100% down to Sarah Michelle Gellar and her name. I can't even remember which episode I got up to with you guys. But again, it remained incredibly slow. The story didn't really move forward. All we had was another few episodes of the kids trying to track down this werewolf, trying to save their friends without telling them that they're werewolves. They figure out who potentially started the fire. Well, they think they know who started the fires. One of the firefighters from the last fire, when the kid's father got killed, actually says that they did see some woman that turned into a wolf. So that really the whole thing was the big reveal was that Sarah Michelle Gellar was a werewolf, which we figured out in episode 2 or 3 when she pushed the guy down the shaft. Pretty obvious. So no massive big reveal, no like, oh my god. And obviously that also means that she's the twins' mother. The werewolf running around is their brother, who was the kid at the party with the shrooms. I think that's who he was. Or who, anyway, yeah, it doesn't make a great deal of sense. It was dull as dishwater. You could have told the whole, however many episodes there were, 10 episodes, probably in about 4. The acting was okay. Its writing was 100% CW, where it's just all about, again, it's a young adult show, so it's all about, teenagers feeling, snogging, where you're putting your tackle, and doing drugs with some werewolf stuff kind of in the mix. It was awful. It was CW awful, probably with like better or higher production values, because the werewolves were quite good, but yeah. It was a completely pointless show, and it wasn't even really it's not even a cliffhanger. It's just like, Sarah Michelle Gellar is your mother. Okay, care? Not really. So I'd say for your own sanity, don't bother with Wolfpack. If you really want to go watch it, feel free. Let me know what you think. Do you think it's as bad as I do? Am I being too harsh? But every time I watched an episode, I was bored to tears, or I could feel my IQ dropping by another couple of points. And after watching any kind of new Trek, I really can't afford for my IQ to drop anymore. Bad for business, man. So yeah, that is definitely a dud on Paramount. So as much as I'm sitting here going, hey, Paramount's got some really good stuff on it, there always has to be one, doesn't there? And that, for me, that is Wolfpack. I can't believe Sarah Michelle Gellar read the script and was like, yeah, this is the thing that's going to get me to come out of retirement. She must have just thought, hey, it's probably a few days work and I'm getting paid a shit ton of money. And can't blame her. But yeah, it's no Buffy. Okay, talking of bad. Oof. What is going on with The Mandalorian? Again, I sort of touched on this a bit in my Atomic Pop chat. Waiting 2 years to drop season 3, getting greedy, trying to shoehorn in Boba Fett in between, which obviously should have been a film. Then they decided to obviously pull all their films because they weren't about to. They're just terrified of putting anything in the cinema and it flopping. Yeah, so 2 episodes of season 3 were shoehorned into Boba Fett. This has caused quite a lot of problems with this show. They were actually quite good episodes, which don't seem to reflect anything else that's going or been going on in this season. So based on those 2 episodes in Boba Fett, I was actually quite looking forward to this. I thought, oh, this looks quite good, actually. So there's obviously had to be a massive course correct with losing Gina Carano. With the higher-ups going, hey, we've got to have Grogu in this because he sells us money, which is what I was talking about yesterday. So if you want to know more about that sort of side of thing and why Mando's imploding, go check out my Atomic Pop chat. But it's just been dull. It's been dull as dishwater. And Mando or Bin has just been written as a complete numpty in this season. Or he's constantly getting beaten in fights. He's getting captured. he couldn't even go in the waters of Mandalore without slipping over in the bathtub effectively. You know, they just made him out to be a complete moron in this season. And what we're seeing is the classic Disney bait and switch and pushing Katie Sackhoff's character to the forefront. Has it been Bo-Katan? And you know, she's done this sort of rallying against or being this independent faction of the Mandalorians, then saving Mando from slipping over in the bath. She sees this creature in the waters, Mythosaur. Who came up with that? I mean, seriously, did they? When they went to buy some new crayons to write the script, some kid was drawing a picture and go, "Hey, it's a Mythosaur." Who knows? And of course, she's seen this Mythosaur. So anyway, so she's obviously gone in the waters. Now she's a born-again Mandalorian with "This is the way," and I'm not taking my helmet off. And that lasted like half an episode, because then she goes see the Forge woman, who tells us the same thing over and over again. Basically, she says, "I've seen a Mythosaur. You couldn't have seen a Mythosaur, but I did see a Mythosaur. Are you sure you saw a Mythosaur? Pretty sure I saw a Mythosaur. Oh, well then, you can take your helmet off." What is that about? What was the point of that? The whole thing of "This is the way." But now all of a sudden, if you take your helmet off, it'll help us bring all the factions together. It makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. And please don't get me wrong, I love Katie Sackhoff. I think she's great. She was awesome as like Starbuck. She should have been Captain Marvel. I think she's a great actress and she should get more work. So it's nothing personally against her or her acting, but I just think the story is just I don't know what's happened to Jon Favreau. Maybe he was never that good to start with and he had a lot of support in the other seasons, or he's just not got enough time to dedicate to writing these, or there's just too much interference from above. And say having to move episodes into Boba Fett, having to rewrite the whole direction of the Mandalorian, bringing Grogu back that actually nobody actually wants. And everybody's like, you know, it's completely undone the story of seasons 1 and 2 and the sacrifices that were made. And, you know, they were much better off keeping him with Luke. And again, it probably comes down to cost, right? So they kept him with Luke. We could have had episodes, as we saw in Boba Fett, there's like one episode where it's pretty much showing Grogu training with Luke and all of that. A lot of deep fake, probably too expensive. But they still could have done it, but they kept it with Luke. And we saw him a couple of times. I mean, it's only like 10 episodes. You could have had a couple of episodes where there's scenes of Grogu training with Luke, and then there's a big finale and Luke and Grogu, or Grogu comes back to help the bin, you know. I don't know. I think they've absolutely ran over their cash cow. It's now a cow pat. And, you know, I guess that, you know, the kind of, you know, as I often say, reap what you sow. They've mucked the fans about. They've called the fans names. This is the one thing that people were giving them a pass on, or was showing them goodwill. Okay, we'll give this a shot because Mando's good. This isn't even good. I mean, this is mediocre at best. This week's episode, people are like, "Oh, it's finally got good." I'm like, it was okay. Just because there's a bit of action doesn't make it good, you know, with those stupid pirates. And we find out, so yeah, the pirates come back to the planet that this is my brain just sort of it goes in and comes out the other side when I'm not bothered or not interested with something. So Carl Weathers, that guy who's running the planet now, where it was so imperative we had IG-11, that's just been all binned off. We're not bothered anymore now. Haven't even put his statue back together, poor dude. The pirates come back, threaten to blow it up or take over. He sends out a message to say to the Republic, the New Republic, we need help. But they haven't officially sort of signed on to being part of the New Republic. like that should matter. I mean, the whole point is New Republic's not a bureaucracy or totalitarian thing, right? If people need help, you go help them. But apparently there's some politics around that, and a lone X-Wing fighter pilot feels like the right thing to do is go help them. There's a sort of scene where he goes to the higher ups and says, like, this planet needs help. They're like, oh, we're overrun, we haven't got enough bandwidth, they've not signed the agreement. And then the new girl, the butch girl they've brought in, is like, there's something going on out there, and when you take your head out from up your ass, it's going to be too late. So again, setting up the First Order. Even though this was supposed to eradicate the sequel trilogies, we heard multiple times from sources, doesn't appear to be happening. So this guy goes off because he's got R5. R5 is able, or R5 used to be his R2, his unit and his X-Wing. He's then managed to get in contact with R5. R5 tells them where they are, so he's able to find all the Mandalorians. They're like, oh my god, you know where we are, we're going to kill you. And he's like, don't kill me. R5 knows me. This is what's happened. Will you go help Carl Weathers? There's an argument amongst the Mandalorians. There's like, this is the way. They all decide to go help him. They help him, kill the pirates. And then this X-Wing fighter pilot finds a destroyed Imperial shuttle that was transporting Moff Gideon at the end of season 2. Everybody on board's been killed. Moff Gideon's body's not there, so someone is kidnapped or rescued, whichever way we don't know. Moff Gideon, and a bit of Beskar in there. So either it looks like the Mandalorians broke him out, but are they being framed, etc., etc. End of episode. So 3 episodes to go, and we finally really just got to the plot point of this season, because there's been none before it. Moff Gideon's out there somewhere, and the Mandalorians are being framed, and so we've got 3 episodes to make it interesting. They might be 3 cracking episodes, but if people are going to wait another 2 years for a season 4 of Mandalorian, I don't think so. Star Wars in its current shape is dead in the water. Kenobi, I think, I think the poor performance of this season is just the final nail in the coffin. I think Kenobi killed off all the goodwill that this show had built. People sort of hanging on. I mean, Andor certainly looked better, and they were trying to do something different, which I commend them for. And it was great. It wasn't all filmed in the volume, but pacing issues, boring. I didn't even finish it. I got to episode 6 or 7, and I was just like, I'm so bored. I probably will go back, because now I can binge it, and maybe the pace a bit better than waiting week on week. But yeah, it's in dire straits. Again, my Atomic Pop chat. Disney are in big trouble. They have lost their cash cow. Nobody cares about Grogu. They're like, quick, put Grogu in. People are buying. People are like, why is Grogu in this? And that was the other problem. People didn't watch Boba Fett because it was so bad, and don't understand why Grogu's now back with Mando. Last thing they saw, he went off into the sunset with Luke Skywalker. Mismanagement. Bad mismanagement. But hey, you all know that. And then, how is KK still there? Good grief. So moving on. I put these 2 up together because they're kind of similar sort of veins, really. I have loved these shows. So yet another Paramount. Rabbit Hole, starring, as you can see there, Kiefer Sutherland. Drops on a Monday. We had the first 2 episodes this week. I'd spoken about the trailer for this on Spacebook. Sort of 24-esque. I mean, obviously largely because Kiefer's in it. Looks really intriguing. Excited to see where it goes, because as we know, trailers can be massively misleading in this day and age. And are we just going to get a lot of the message, or are we going to get entertainment and story? And on Netflix, dropped a couple of weeks ago. You see there, March 23rd, The Night Agent. Again, sort of action, male lead. What are we going to get? So I've watched all of The Night Agent because Netflix binge. And obviously we've got the 3rd episode of Rabbit Hole coming up on this Monday. Oh. The reason I kind of put I love both of these shows. And B, actually, so it's great to have this genre back again. And with John Wick 4 coming out and being so successful, I'll be seeing that in a couple of weeks, hopefully. And it keeps catching Hollywood off guard that, wow, this is really successful. Same like Top Gun Maverick. Wow, how has this made so much money? We've been telling them what they should be watching, but they still keep going out and watching this stuff. We don't understand it. So again, strong male leads, being strong men, going out kicking butt. It's not rocket science, and you can have so in The Night Agent, as it says, he's a night agent. He's in the White House. He monitors a phone effectively that field agents, like top secret, spy, James Bondy types. If things go sideways, they phone the night agent, as it's a safe, sort of encrypted way of contacting. They give certain codes. He's got this big binder he goes through, and depending on what they say, they know what the emergency is, and they send people out to help field agents. This phone never rings, apparently. He's been there a while. He does the night shift, sort of 8 to 8 or something, or midnight till 8, something like that. And prior to starting this job, he's in the FBI. He got on the metro, witnesses a guy getting on with a backpack, stashes the backpack, leaves the metro, the tube, sort of train, subway. He clocks this, as a federal agent. He's trained to look for suspicious stuff. He goes over, checks the backpack, and there's a bomb in it. So obviously he gets the FBI. We've got to, pulls the brake cord. We've got to get off the train. Pretty much gets everybody off, but the bomb goes off, and unfortunately, like, one person is killed. He then obviously the police, emergency services come, and they're now being treated. They're above ground, and he sees this guy, clocks him as the guy who left the backpack, goes after him. Obviously, he's like beaten up, but he's chasing after him, and he gets run over. How this guy keeps going, and this is where, with any action thing, whatever you're watching, you've got to suspend a bit of disbelief, because how these people keep going when they're shot and they got broken ribs and they're run over and they've been exploded, and they still manage to keep going. But anyway, I love it. So he gets run over and the guy gets away. So on the back of like sort of being this hero and saving people, he gets offered this night agent's job. Then one night the phone rings, and we were introduced to his sort of co-lead. His character called Rose. She's a sort of tech startup. She's come up with sort of software that prevents hacking for big corporations. Someone she starts the company with basically screws her over, and she loses her company. She's living with her aunt and uncle. Her parents were, I think, killed or died when she was younger. So all the family she has. Then someone breaks into their house, and it turns out that they're spies. And obviously she had no idea. They're retired now. They give her a piece of paper and say, go ring this number and quote what's on it, and help will come. And she manages to get away. So she phones this number, and it's the night agent, Peter. So he takes so she gives him the message. He asks her questions, but obviously she can't verify anything. That's all she's been given. He stays on the phone with her and sends out help. And this is the start of this big, massive puzzle of, so she finds out then that obviously her aunt and uncle were secret agents. She had no idea. She's been a bit betrayed by it all. But then with his help, he's there to help keep her safe. Then she's assigned a Secret Service detail. That detail gets pulled. And the hit people that went after her uncle were coming after her. When they realize that the Secret Service agents got pulled, there has to be someone on the inside. And the whole thing is there. And she overheard her aunt and uncle talking about this code name called Osprey, the Little Osprey, and there's someone in the White House. So a lot of the plot is all around who is the traitor in the White House, who's doing dodgy dealings, who's trying to kill them, who can you trust, who can you not trust. And it was done really, really well. We find D.B. Woodside's in this. For those any Buffy fans, he was the guy who played the principal in season 7 and had a little trust there with Buffy for a while. He's great in this. Again, he's a Secret Service agent. He was on President Detail a few years ago, took a bullet for him. And then, unfortunately, because of that, he was prescribed painkillers and then he was put on to Oxy. Woof. Anybody check out my review of Dope Sick on Disney. Gives you the whole background of Oxy. It blows my mind that thing is still prescribed in America, but that's another story. And that leaves a slippery slope. But now he's managed to get himself clean. He's getting himself back in the service. He has to check in twice a week, give tests, prove that he's clean. And he's assigned to looking after the vice president's daughter at college. And there's an agent there. Now, I think this is where some people will roll their eyes a little bit at this. Initially, her character, she's carbon copy, sassy, rude, put down the more experienced male. You can't teach me anything. Quite obnoxious. And you really like, oh God, here we go. Knew it had to be in here somewhere. However, there is a bit of a backstory to her. It does explain why she is how she is to him, not just because he's a man. And she has something happens. It's quite humbling, and actually their relationship develops, their sort of partnership, and actually, her character does improve. And again, if she's going to be sassy and snarky, it's actually, there was a reason behind it, not just because she's like, I'm great at everything. So bear with her. I will say bear with her. Her character does get better. Don't give up when she comes on the screen, because I found her immensely annoying. And the way she was talking to D.B. Woodside's character, I was just like, don't take that from her, but stick with it. It does go somewhere and it's good. So yeah, I have watched all of this. I'm not going to give say spoilers how it all plays out. But there's lots of twists and turns, and I love stuff like who can you trust, who can't you trust, and what's the bigger plot behind all of this. And the finale was really good as well. I really enjoyed it. Again, spend a little bit of disbelief, like any of these things, like all these films. White House Down, how easy it is to get in and out the White House, and how easy it is to get on Camp David and all these things in these films. But you've got to roll with it, because otherwise we wouldn't have any entertainment. So yeah, I highly recommend The Night Agent. It has been renewed for season 2. So that's a bit of a spoiler. Obviously, he doesn't die. But yeah, I think they concluded it really well. So most of the characters are portrayed really well. There's some women in there who aren't that likable, which is always good. Women aren't perfect either. Surprise, surprise. So yeah, I highly recommend this. Do go check it out. All episodes are on Netflix. So moving on to Rabbit Hole, as I said, a bit sort of 24-esque. It is and it isn't. Really interesting concept, this one. So we've got Kiefer Sutherland. He's he runs a company, sort of corporate espionage. So if they want to tank a stock price, or there's things that, is not blatantly illegal, but it's in that gray area. So he's kind of got, again, like the FBI kind of looking at him and his business process, what he's doing. Like, is there anything they can actually arrest him for? Because morally it's very questionable, but he hasn't actually broken the law yet. And he's hired by a sort of old friend, and they used to work together to do a job, and they need to make it look like somebody in a company is colluding or working with another agency, which they're not at all, but they need to fabricate a situation where they can take some photos and make it look like something dodgy is going on, to again damage the company and sort of prevent a purchase or whatever. So Kiefer kind of begrudgingly agrees to do this. You're introduced to his team. It's a little bit sort of Mission Impossible-esque. If you remember the first Mission Impossible film, you kind of meet all the team, what their specialities are. Here's the plan. This is how we're going to execute it. We need to do this, and we set this up. And this person, is very punctual. They leave at this time. This is the car they drive. They always have breakfast here, and it's all military precision of how they're going to orchestrate getting these two people in the same place at the same time to make it look like they've purposely met. So all this happens, it all goes to plan. They get the photographs that they need, job done. Then it completely turns to shit. So the person, one of the people that they photographed, then turns up dead. Or there's pictures of a dead body. Then Kiefer's pictures plastered everywhere. He's been framed to say that he's killed this person, so now he's on the run. He heads back to his sort of business to get hold of his team, to try and find out, are they okay? What the hell's happened? And the office building, the whole top floor, just a whole bomb goes off, wipes out, he thinks, all of his team. Obviously, he goes back to the person that hired him, and he comes in and is like, what the F is going on? Why did you pick me? What's this about him being dead? And the guy sort of looks at his email, just gets up, cool as a cucumber, walks over to the window, and just and there's like a terrace, and he just chucks himself off the side of the building. And and he checks what was on his email, and just like, do it now. So someone has told him that he's got to, delete himself. We also see some sort of flashbacks from Kiefer's character as a child, because he goes to this house which hasn't been lived in since probably like the 80s or something, very run down. That's sort of like his safe house. And we see a flashback that was basically his family house, his mum and dad, and we see some interactions between his mum and dad. His dad seems to be like paranoid that his wife was having an affair. There's lots of arguments, and he's a little bit unhinged. And we sort of see these flashbacks, and eventually, like, the wife leaves the husband and takes young Kiefer with her. They go to a petrol station, and he gets out the car and basically legs it back to his dad's, because obviously he doesn't understand what's going on. He's just a young kid. He doesn't want to leave his father. And when he walks in, there's a shotgun fired, and you sort of see the pellets coming through the wall, and the kid walks into the father's sort of study, and he's like blown his brains out. So we've got this there's something going on in Kiefer's childhood, that we keep getting these flashbacks. He's been set up, and then in this house is actually the Asian guy who he's been framed for killing. So clearly he's not dead. And he's been tailed by a sort of federal agent, because again, they're trying to get something on him. He finds out that one of his crew didn't die in the explosion, and because he goes to police, say there's an encryption key that he needs to be able to get into his friend who chucked himself a building, emails. He then orchestrates a way to sort of break in or get into the police precinct to steal this bit of evidence. He comes out, one of his crew is there on a skateboard, but then he takes Kiefer out, and a fight ensues, and they're both after this encryption key. And again, Kiefer's like, what the hell's going on? We're supposed to be friends. What is this? And he manages to get the encryption key and get away with this other girl. There's other girls in it. I can't remember how. That was it. So he was in a bar and she hits on him and they end up sleeping together. So she kind of ends up kind of in the crosshairs of all of this. So really intriguing start. Love the first 2 episodes. So we've got this whole setup that someone's been killed who hasn't been killed. He's been framed. And then at the end of the second episode, Charles Dance is introduced and he walks in. It's Kiefer's dad, but we just see in the flashbacks that Kiefer's dad killed himself. So there's these obviously subplots going on from when he was a kid. What's going on now? Why is he being framed? Why are they trying to say this person's been, who's framing everybody? Why did his friend just, chuck himself off a building? Who has that kind of sway over him? So yeah, love the first 2 episodes. Really intriguing. Can't wait to find out where this goes. Great acting as you'd expect from like Kiefer and Charles Dance. But the premise, the setup is really good. I hope it maintains it. I'm looking forward to the 3rd episode, which will drop on Monday. As I said, Paramount Weekly. Absolutely nailing it, keeping the interest of everybody, talking about their shows. The channel seems to be, getting new subscribers. I think, on the back of Yellowstone and the prequels to Yellowstone, certainly bringing the cash in. And also because of this little beauty, Picard Season 3. Again, I've been dropping weekly reviews on this, so do go check out the weekly reviews where also I go into a lot of detail about the episodes, what I think might be going on, because who knows. I will say this week's episode is a good episode, but probably the weakest one we've had so far. But it doesn't make it a bad episode. There was just a little bit of silliness in there, a little bit of, probably like weak writing that we've had. Everything has kind of made sense and you see why the characters would act how they'd act. This one is just a little bit of, really? I'm not sure about that. But it does not detract it from being a good episode. It moves the story forward. We find out a lot more around Thadik, the leader of the Shrake, and why the changelings are attacking, why the changelings feel how they feel towards the Federation and Starfleet, which is like really key information. We have some great scenes this episode. The start of the episode, we have Seven talking to Tuvok. For Voyager fans, obviously they're trying to find out if there's anyone in Starfleet that they can trust that can help them. Seven asks a series of questions of Tuvok, or there's dialogue, and they talk about their time on Voyager. Initially, Tuvok's able to answer her questions. Then she says that, okay, well, let's meet on this planet. He says, fine, no problem. And then she talks about stabilizing her neural nets. So let's meet on this planet. He says yes. And then at that point she goes, you're not Tuvok. This incident happened. Vulcans will not go to this planet. And you stabilize my neural nets on Voyager. So you are not Tuvok. And then and so we know it's a changeling. And what's really obviously Tuvok just then smiles. And obviously a Vulcan wouldn't do that. He just sort of smiles and then goes into this you guys got no chance kind of thing. And Picard steps forward and says, where's Riker? The changeling then changes into a version of like a dead body version of Riker, which is really because obviously he was captured by the Shrake in the last episode. Geordi has to cut communications because otherwise they can trace them. They're hiding in this Starfleet scrapyard. And then we kind of go from there. So the episode explores more about Jack, and obviously he's been hearing voices, and he was able to kill the changelings. And when he has one of these episodes, his eyes go red. In this episode, he can start to hear thoughts. He hears Sydney. He's flirting with Sydney in the turbo lift, and he hears her thoughts about like him being a bit, because he's like, hey, what are your quarters like? I was like, whoa, it's like, dial it down, mum. And she pretty much says the same in her head, which I thought was quite funny. But that kind of freaks him out a bit, you know, that he can hear her thoughts, and he goes to speak to Picard about it, because we told this is this aeronautic syndrome. Obviously, there's genetic illness that Picard has, and he's inherited it. And he's talking to him about it, and he's just like, you know, we now know that the Shrek have got Riker. I just need to hand myself over. All this is my fault. I can't have these sort of deaths on my conscience. And Riker was always good to me. You know, I'm not worth say. I'm not, you know, these people's lives are worth more than mine. And Picard's having none of it. So he's like, no, we're not going to give up. We're going to find a way to do this. And it's been great. So obviously over the last few weeks, we've had the build up, and Geordi's been reintroduced. We've seen the dynamic with him and his daughters. So like things are a bit frosty between him and Sydney, but Alondra works with Geordi at the Starfleet Museum. We had some great scenes where they're going around showing all the old ships at the Starfleet Museum. We see the Enterprise A, we see the Voyager, the Defiant, and the Bounty, so the old Klingon bird of prey from the voyage home. And there's a bit of dialogue between Jack and Seven as they're looking at these ships, and she tells him about Voyager and how it was her home and they were her family, which is a brilliant scene, lovely and touching. And then they talk about the Klingon bird of prey and how Starfleet had trouble finding it in the Bay of San Francisco Bay because the cloaking device kicked in. This sets an idea up then later when they're being, you know, they need to be able to go back to Daystrom. They've dropped off Worf, Raffi, and Riker at Daystrom to try and find out what has been stolen apart from the portal weapon. Something else has been taken. But the Federation arrives, so they have to hoof it out of there and leave them in Daystrom. So this then sparks an idea, and Jack and Sydney and Alondra decide to steal the cloaking device and put it on the Titan so they can go back and get the others. This doesn't go to plan. And there's a great scene where, because basically Geordi has refused to help Picard. He's like, I've got my own family to think of, and they come first, and I can't put her in harm's way. And I think a lot of people said, well, that's not how Geordi would behave. He wouldn't react like that. But I think you know, he's older. He's biological family. He's put ahead of his his Starfleet family. And he doesn't fully, I think, believe Picard at this point in terms of the changelings and stuff. He makes a comment when Picard tells him about Jack, and he's like, oh, you can't have a kid without it being an international incident, you know. So there's always dramas around Picard. So, and Geordi's just like, no, I'm done. I've done my drama. I'm done. I'm looking after my daughter. This kind of backfires because Sydney's like, no, you know, I'm standing with my crew. They're my family. And Geordi's like, no, they're not. We're your family. And she goes, no, yes, they are. And you taught me that. So it's a great kind of, you know, reminding Geordi of who he was, and, you know, that your Starfleet family are just as important as your actual family. And there's no differentiation, like family's family. You know, it doesn't have to be blood to be family. And he sort of goes on, and they have a conversation later to say, you know, after the cloaking device is going to like blow up the Titan, Geordi's able to sort of fix it and stop the chain reaction. And he has a conversation with Sydney, and he's like, I'm really disappointed. He goes, but in myself, young Geordi wouldn't have skipped a beat to help Picard, and I can't believe that I didn't in the first instance agree to do it, and she sort of reminded him of the person he used to be, and I think that I really enjoyed that little arc. So episodes 5 and 6, absolutely fantastic, loved them. Bangers of an episode. We got some great reveals at Daystrom interview. There's a Genesis device 2, that there's the body of James T. Kirk, and the killer Tribbles. Who wouldn't want killer Tribbles? And then they find a version of Data, who's actually the AI at the center of the Daystrom Institute. And in this version of Data, it's an aged version that's sung. This is the song from season 1 of Picard. Season 1. Had built this new version, and he wanted to do it so he'd evolved. So that's just kind of explain why Data's now old. You sort of the greatest gift I could give them was like aging or something naff like that. But it explains why, it's obviously because Brett Spiner's older, and they probably couldn't afford the deep fake to make him younger consistently well for all the episodes. But I quite liked it. And within this model of Data, we find out there's personalities of Data, Lore, Before, and Lol. And they were all put in, and someone was hoping that they'd all kind of integrate and make him more human. All these different facets would make him more human. But also Sung was concerned, and there's like a partition in Data that the two dominant personalities are Data and Lore. There's like a partition within his own positronic brain that keeps the Lore and sort of Data separated, because Lore and what Geordi and Picard's and everybody's concern is that Lore will overpower Data. He will become the dominant personality, and we know Lore's not a good guy. We've seen this time and time again. So this sort of culminates in this episode that they basically taken the fight to the Shrek after Jack saying hand me over, and Picard's like, no, we're going to fight, I've got an idea. And they decide to fake the ship being crippled. The Shrek come aboard, and they basically trick the Shrek into certain parts of the ship up sort of shields to make these partitions, and Thadik gets captured in sickbay, and the other members of the crew are partitioned off, and Jack and Sydney are caught because it doesn't quite go right, and they're sort of caught in the middle. Geordi goes to beam them out and can't, and they start losing functions on the ship, and this is because Lore has taken control and is preventing Geordi from beaming Sydney out of harm's way. And then he starts dropping the shields, and Geordi's basically watching the Shrek like throwing around his daughter like a rag doll. Jack's got he's trying to fight his one off. And this is the bit of the episode I thought was a bit silly. I mean, there's a scene where Sydney's running away from this Shrek, and he's got a gun, and he probably could have shot her about 6 times and just doesn't. It's like, okay. But also then this bit with Jack and her, because in her head she's like, what am I going to do? And then she hears Jack's voice, and her eyes go red, his eyes go red, and there's some kind of link. Now that in itself I'm kind of okay with. But then he starts showing her how to sort of avoid and fight this, and then sort of mirroring each other. So he's like rolls, so he rolls and she rolls. The whole fighting bit, it was choreographed very well. I mean, they're completely in sync, but it was just a bit daft. And this whole just trying to put them, I know. Anyway, so this kind of plays out that she's a bit scared of him, because she was like, was that you in my head? And he's like, yeah, but just trust me, it's still me, So on one hand, I as I say, go check out my detail review that I think is a way of trying to show you that his powers, or he's, are growing. And we find out, say, when Thadik's held in sickbay, Beverly and Jean-Luc are sort of interrogating her, and we find out this whole backstory that, as we've known from previous episodes, in the Dominion War, they came up with a virus to release on the changelings, but they also created a cure. as far as Starfleet history is concerned, they were given the cure. Vadic says no, that's not what actually happened. Yes, you had a cure and you voted against giving it to us, effectively, committing genocide. So the changelings had to go and steal the cure, and they managed to get that back to the Dominion and the Link. And but some of the changelings got captured, including her. And then Section 31 proceeds to experiment on them and torture them to try and create the sort of an ultimate weapon that if you've got a changeling that can maintain its shape, you've kind of got the perfect spy or espionage that you can drop in. They can't be detected, and you just create chaos wherever you want to go. So the scientist in Section 31 we see is actually Amanda Plummer, and she's taken on the face of her own torturer, the scientist involved, and eventually she killed her. So this is kind of what's behind their hatred of the Federation, that they tried to, in their view, they tried to wipe them out with not giving them the cure, and then they've been systematically tortured for and experimented on for, we don't know whether that's months or years, until actually you created us. We didn't exist until you started experimenting on us. So you created with your own downfall, effectively. Beverly and Picard obviously taken aback by this, and that Starfleet could be involved in anything like that. And granted, it's Section 31, but somebody knows something somewhere high up, right? So, but anyway, they have a conversation. They realize they're not going to get, because obviously Beverly wants to know, why are you after Jack? What is so special about Jack? And they also find out from Data that they stole Picard's dead body from Daystrom. So they've got Picard's dead body and they want Jack for some reason. Obviously, she's not going to tell them. They realize that she's not going to tell them anything. And again, there's a bit of a sort of moral quandary there. Beverly and Picard wouldn't murder someone in cold blood. That's not in their nature, not as Starfleet officers, not their personalities. However, their parents. And they make the decision that they're going to kill Thavik to protect Jack. So they start firing. So the shields drop down. They start firing at her. She changes to her jelly-like form. So manages to escape. And then it all goes wrong. And her and the changelings manage to take over the Titan. They get to the bridge. They beat the crap out of Shaw. Bless him. He's not having a good week. And right at the end of the episode, Thavik makes an announcement to ship and says to Jack, if you can hear me, come find out who you really are. So it's a great cliffhanger. Some really good scenes. There's a bit with Geordi when he's watching the Shrake going after his daughter, and he's screaming at Lore as Data, Data, I know you're in there. You've got to help me. He's going to kill Sydney, and he's many people don't get second chances to say what they need to say, because obviously Data was killed. That how it broke him when Data died, because it was Data was his best friend, and Data made him a better person, and he helped fix him, and he's a better father and husband and all these things for having had Data in his life. And Lore just laughs at him, going, "Data's gone, dude." And there's a scene he's obviously looking on the screen, and he sees the Shrek getting hold of Sydney, and he just screams at Data to help him. And Data's able to take back control. But LeVar Burton's performance was fantastic. It was really good. And he's crying and just bearing his soul to Data. It was really, really good. And they've always had a great interaction. The relationship was always between Data and Geordi, not Geordi and Picard. And that's why it didn't really work in the film so well. But yeah, it was brilliant. So I'd say some absolutely great gems performance and scenes in this episode. the whole thing with Jack and Sydney and the mind link up was just a bit daft. And there's a bit of like, you had about 1,000 times to shoot Sydney and you didn't, just to move the plot along a bit. But it's still a good episode. It is not a bad episode. And I think that speaks volumes. You know, if you're getting good story, good characterization, you can give a little bit of a pass on some bits where you go, really? Okay, I'll let you have this one. But I am loving this show. Absolutely loving this show. It's I think I've gone back and watched some TNG episodes for the first time in I don't know how long. New Trek, it just left such a bad taste in my mouth for anything Star Trek that I was just like a bit numb to it all. And I'm absolutely loving going back, watching TNG episodes. I've been watching some TOS episodes. I think I'm going to start watching a bit of Voyager. And I'll probably give DS9 another go. I was never a big DS9 fan. I could just never quite get into it. I think maybe because I was watching Babylon 5 at the same time, and I loved that show. Now, I didn't dislike DS9. I just never followed it as rigidly or had the passion for it that I do like TNG and the original series. I know a lot of people love DS9. It's like their favorite. So bit older, bit wiser. Well, maybe not wiser, but I might go back and revisit DS9, and I might appreciate it more now than I did back then. So anyway, yes, I highly recommend Picard season 3. Do not go watch any other seasons of Picard because you will lose the will to live, and any other New Trek for that matter. I've been told that I should give Strange New Worlds another go. I couldn't get through the first episode. Maybe I'll wait until this is finished and I can enjoy this in its entirety, and then maybe go check out Strange New Worlds. I'm not sure I'm that brave. Cool. So lastly, I just want to talk about an upcoming show. I talked about this on the Facebook last night. If you weren't able to catch that, this is Citadel. As you can see there, the Russo brothers are involved. They're executive producers, starring Richard Madden and I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. Is it Brianna Jonas? Obviously married to Nick Jonas. Absolutely stunning woman. Absolutely beautiful. And a good actress by all accounts. And I love Richard Madden, you know, easy on the eyes and a very good actor. If you've never seen Bodyguard, go check that out. Great show from amazingly from the BBC. I think it's on Netflix at the moment, and I'm sure it's on BritBox or iPlayer. So anyway, Citadel. I had the opportunity to watch and review the first episode of this. As I'm on a sort of panel with Amazon. Netflix has the same sort of thing. Unfortunately, I'm not on that one. So I get the opportunity to see some shows in advance, tell them what I think. Have to sign NDAs around it when you get to watch it, because it's like I watched this a few months ago. So recollection is a little bit vague, but enough stuck. So it must have been good. But now the trailers are out. It's coming out at the end of this month. I'm sort of talking about it a bit, so hopefully I won't be in trouble. So the pretense of this is that Citadel is sort of, again, another spy setup. And these guys are spies on the same side. There's an evil equivalent, you know, and they're all on this train. And there's meant to be this sort of meetup, and it goes sideways, and they're basically set up an ambush. And the train's blown up, they're thrown clear of the train, and then we kind of skip sort of 7 years down the line, and we see Richard Madden, you know, as a husband, a father, just living a normal life, kind of, it looks like sort of Midwest somewhere or something in America, you know, just day to day, taking his kids to school, working, doing normal things, and he's basically got no recollection, no memory of who he was, what he did. That he was even a spy, and it's the same for her. But there's like a sort of series of events that happen, and he kind of has this automatic reaction to something, and it's a bit like, how did I know how to do that? Like, what the hell? And it's like texting his family, and something gets flagged to say that he's still alive to someone else. Anthony Tucci? What's his first name? Let me just find that out. I'm so terrible with names. I should really look these up before the start, shouldn't I? I mean, oh dear. Yeah, Citadel. Let's have a look at that. Bear with me, peeps. What's his name? Stanley Tucci. But you were screaming at me, Stanley, you idiot. Yeah, so he worked for the Citadel. He gets a ping that Richard Madden's character, Mason Kane, is still alive. And this starts a sort of obviously a chain of events. And he goes to help Mason Kane. And yeah, he's still sort of deeply involved in the spy side of things. Tucci's character, you sort of see him, he's got a group of people in a basement all tied up and he's interrogating them. But I really enjoyed this first episode that I saw. It wasn't obviously completely finished because it was a few months back, but I really enjoyed that first episode. The premise was very interesting. As Ian, the Mega Geek, shout out Ian, was saying on Facebook last night, it's not really a new premise. It's got like sort of hints of like The Long Kiss Goodnight with Gina Davis, you know, where she's a teacher, she's married, then all of a sudden she starts discovering these skills again. It's very much that sort of set up. And I think Amazon Prime have kind of come out saying like this is our sort of James Bond kind of thing, you know. It's very much, you know, where you've got MI5 and the various bad guy organizations kind of thing. So it's all very much in that genre. From the first episode, it doesn't suggest it's going to take it any sort of revolutionary direction. But the chemistry between Richard Madden and the lead actress, sorry, I can't pronounce her name. How do you what's her name? Priyanka was great. She didn't come across as sort of Mary Sue territory. There's some good chemistry between them. Tucci's always fantastic. But the layup of the first episode was definitely good enough that I was like, actually, I'd be quite interested to see that when that comes out and see where it goes. I don't know how many seasons they're planning for it to run for, but Richard Madden's great. Like I said, he's fantastic in The Bodyguard. He's a really solid actor. I do like his stuff. So yeah, so looking forward to Citadel. It comes out at the end of April. I think it's 27th or 28th of April on Amazon Prime. But again, talking about Night Agent and Rabbit Hole, I'm loving that these sort of action genres, spy thrillers are sort of coming back to the forefront again. You know, these are really common in the 90s and the noughties. You know, we had like sort of Alias and Dark Angel and 24. You know, they're really, really commonplace, and they've all kind of taken a back seat because of, you know, we can't have male leads, we can't have toxic masculinity. But these are coming through, and like you can have male leads about toxic masculinity. That's just BS, right? And again, you can have female counterpart, female spies without them being Mary Sue's. You know, you just need someone, a bit of intelligence and a good writer, that we can have strong characters, you know, equal in different ways. You know, the female spy won't be as strong as the male spy, but, you know, she maybe, you know, with her femme fatale ways, if she's allowed to use them, you know, has her own strengths. And it's good if we're sort of getting back to that, you know, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and let's exploit them and use them, you know. So yeah, so I'm really looking forward to obviously the continuation of Rabbit Hole. Looking forward to this coming out at the end of April. I hope it's as good, the rest of it's as good as the first episode that I've seen. It was definitely promising, obviously, and I'm eager to see the finished version of the first episode, because sometimes they change the editing, they finish obviously the CGI, and see how it all comes out. But I thought the pacing, the setup was really good. Because I watched that 2 or 3 months ago, and when I saw it advertised, I was like, oh great, that thing I watched is coming out. So I've still got that buzz to watch it from from a few months ago, that I still remember it and looking forward to seeing it. So exciting times. We're actually starting, to see a little bit of shift, and people are studios going, maybe we should make what people want, not what we tell them they should want. Who defunct it? So that's it for this week. Love to know your thoughts around all these shows. Are you watching them? Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Is there anything you think I should watch and review? Let me know. Leave it in the comments. I'll always come back to you. And as ever, thank you for watching. Do like, share, and please subscribe. So thank you for your time, and I will be back next week. You inevitably find me on the Spacebook. I will be dropping my normal weekly Picard season 3 review on a Friday. Then on a Friday, I try and watch it and get a reaction video out pretty quickly if I can, work permitting. And then I'll be back, obviously, with another Sunday lunch next week. We'll be back to a bit more of the usual format, saying a bit of pop culture news, bit of reviews. I split that into 2 this week. We say with the Atomic Pop chat dropping yesterday and Sunday lunch today, just because there's so much to get through because I've not been around for a couple of weeks. But we'll try and get that format back. And as I say, where possible, I might have to keep Sunday lunch maybe as a recorded show, as my weekends just over the next couple of months just look crazy. So I might try and do a different day live show, toying maybe with a Wednesday evening. We'll see, but I will definitely try and get some live shows up and running because I love interacting with you guys. Appreciate your comments when I get them. So yeah, that's it for this week. Have a great week, and I will see you soon. Have fun. Take care, blondies. Ta-da.